Welcome to True Gangster Stories, and in this episode, I'll be discussing a deadly chain of events surrounding a rivalry between two gangs that shook the streets of Walthamstow in northeast London. This true story revolves around a drill rapper named Kammar Kay-O Henry Richards and his co-defendants, who were all convicted of murder and conspiracy charges after the fatal shooting of a man named Casey Booth outside the Peterhouse Community Centre on August the 13th, 2022. Born and raised in East London, Casey was 25 years old at the time of his death, known in his community for having ties to a gang that often clashed with a rival gang called the E9ers. On that particular evening, a birthday party was being held for the child of Casey's close friend and alleged fellow associate, a man named Cal Samantha. The father was hosting the celebrations at the Peterhouse Community Centre, a spot people assumed would be safe enough for family and friends to gather without fearing any immediate threat of violence. But behind the scenes, tensions ran high because the friction between Casey's group, often connected to the London Fields gang, and the E9ers had escalated to a point of no return. The London Fields gang, often abbreviated to LFB, is a street crew based around the London Fields in Hackney, East London. Historically tied to violence and turf disputes dating back to the 1990s, they were once allied with the Tottenham Mandem, TDM, but eventually fell out, resulting in serious clashes. Over the years, LFB also faced off against other Hackney groups, such as Love of Money, LOM. Members and offshoots of LFB have been known for stabbings, shootings, and long-running feuds with rival crews, contributing to an ongoing cycle of street violence in the area. Word on the street was that K.O. had been boasting in his lyrics, giving subtle references to deadly acts and mocking any perceived opposition who crossed his path. According to prosecutors, the plan that night was not just about murdering Casey, but also designed to take out Khaled or another London Fields affiliate. Casey had his guard down as he walked out towards his vehicle, never suspecting that in a matter of moments, his life would come to a violent end. Around 9:30 p.m, multiple shots rang out on Forest Rise near the community centre, catching neighbours by surprise and sending partygoers scattering for cover. Casey was struck in the neck and chest, injuries that proved fatal. Panicked friends rushed him to the hospital in a private car, but it was too late. He was pronounced dead, leaving behind a devastated family, including his older brother Kyle, who had survived being shot with the very same firearm 2 years earlier. This weapon was notorious in the area, having been used in at least 7 incidents from 2020 up until the night Casey was killed, illustrating the entrenched cycle of violence that plagued these neighborhoods. 11 days prior to the shooting, an innocent neighbor of Khaled's, a man named Abdurrahman, was shot while sitting in his car, the perpetrators mistakenly believing he was someone else tied to the London Fields gang. Though he was badly wounded, he miraculously survived. On the day Casey died, the same gun was allegedly fired in Hackney Wick, only to be disposed of later as the defendants scrambled to cover their tracks, ditching cars and trying to remove any hints of their involvement. Over the following weeks, what shocked the community even more was a video posted by K.O., a drill track called Laughingstock, in which he bragged about the murder in chilling lyrics, referencing both Casey and his older brother Carl getting hit by the same SIG, letting the streets know that he took pride in inflicting pain on a rival crew. The arrogance and callousness on display in that video would eventually prove to be the final piece of the puzzle for law enforcement, who had spent countless weeks poring over phone records and CCTV footage and speaking with witnesses too fearful to come forward publicly. As the case moved to the Old Bailey, prosecutors outlined how the shooters meticulously conspired to kill or at least maim Khaled that night, and, failing that, targeted Casey, who had strong ties to him. The prosecution dismantled the claim that these men were merely involved in petty car thefts, presenting overwhelming evidence that they had one objective: to eliminate enemies. In the end, the jury deliberated for a week and found 4 individuals: K.O., full name Kammar Henry Richards, Kamani K.B. Brightly Donaldson, J.G. G.M.R., and J.O. J.T. Patricio T., guilty of murder conspiracy to murder, and conspiracy to possess a firearm with intent to endanger life. Brightly Donaldson faced additional charges for possessing a prohibited firearm, while a man named Rudy admitted to having a prohibited weapon but was cleared of other charges. Meanwhile, the jury failed to reach a verdict on a further defendant, Kadeem Caddo Brightly Barnes, who awaits further legal proceedings. Each person found guilty was sentenced the following year. Reflecting on how a plot to stamp out an alleged rival on the streets of Walthamstow has cost them their freedom indefinitely. For the family of KC, the pain is immeasurable. A promising young man who found himself caught in a world shaped by postcode wars and violent beefs spanning years has been laid to rest. Casey's older brother Carl, who had endured a nearly deadly shooting before, must now grapple with the fact that the same gun came back to kill a loved one. Neighbours around Peter House Community Centre, once a gathering place for innocent celebrations, are left shaken. Many recall hearing the shots that sounded like war was erupting in an otherwise quiet residential patch of E17. This area, like many parts of Hackney and Walthamstow, has a history of crew feuds and alliances that started decades ago. From the days when London Fields beefed Tottenham Mandem, to the emergence of love of money in E5 and N16, to the formation of modern sets like ZT/CSG and the E9ers, the violence has become ingrained and attempts at peace often unravel. These neighbourhoods carry scars from constant infighting, stabbings and shootings, with new generations inheriting grudges from the old. Detectives led by DCI Larry Smith expressed some relief that justice was served, acknowledging how their team spent countless hours assembling a case with phone data, CCTV, and reluctant witness statements. They hope the conviction sent a message to others tempted by the lure of gang violence and drill music's glamorization of murder. But for many, that message falls on deaf ears. The cycle continues, and despite multiple convictions, the underlying hostilities remain, with smaller subsets forming new alliances and sworn enemies left seeking retaliation. The official statement from the Metropolitan Police hammered home the point. If you continue in gang culture, your future either ends behind bars or at the receiving end of a bullet. Meanwhile, families mourning victims like Casey keep candles lit, memorials decorated with flowers and cards, and pray for a day when these postcodes will no longer echo with the sounds of gunshots and sirens. Maybe then children's birthday parties at community centres can be a space for happiness instead of heartbreak. Thank you for tuning in. Please like, comment and subscribe to stay updated as we continue to uncover the dark realities behind these infamous street conflicts, always remembering the victims whose lives were cut tragically short.